When you wake up in the morning, one of the most impactful things you can do for your mental and physical health is to step outside and get sunlight into your eyes, ideally within the first 30 to 60 minutes of waking. This simple habit, requiring only 5 to 10 minutes of your time, initiates a cascade of biological processes that regulate your mood, energy levels, cognitive function, hormone balance, and sleep quality. Here's what happens. Your eyes contain specialized cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. These cells are not involved in vision, but in signaling to a region of your brain known as the suprachiasmatic nucleus, SCN, located in the hypothalamus. The SCN is the central circadian clock of your body. It synchronizes nearly every cell and system in your body to a 24-hour rhythm. But it doesn't work on its own. It relies on light, and more specifically, the blue spectrum of natural sunlight, to keep time accurately. When sunlight hits those retinal cells in the morning, it sends a strong alerting signal to your SCN. This does several things. First, it sets a biological countdown timer to release melatonin about 14 to 16 hours later, which helps you fall asleep at night. Second, it triggers the release of cortisol, not in the stress sense, but as a healthy, timed rise in cortisol that promotes wakefulness, focus, and a natural boost in energy. This morning cortisol peak is essential. It acts as a metabolic reset, regulating immune function, metabolism, and brain chemistry. When this cortisol spike happens too late in the day, or not at all due to insufficient light exposure, it disrupts your entire rhythm, leading to grogginess, mood swings, poor focus, and erratic sleep patterns. The timing matters. Getting outside as early as possible, even on cloudy days, is key. Indoor lighting simply does not provide the same lux intensity, a measure of light brightness. Outdoor light in the morning can range from 10,000 to over 100,000 lux, even in overcast conditions, while indoor lights typically hover around 500 lux. That difference in intensity is what makes morning sunlight a powerful time giver or zegiber for your biological systems. It's not just about the eyes. This light exposure also influences neurotransmitter production. It supports the release of dopamine and serotonin, two critical brain chemicals involved in mood regulation, motivation, and feelings of well-being. Over time, consistent morning sunlight exposure helps stabilize mood and reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression. There's also growing evidence that it improves alertness, reaction time, and decision-making, making it a natural nootropic for your brain. Importantly, this habit is free, scalable, and immediately accessible. There's no app or supplement that can substitute for natural light exposure. And you don't need to stare directly at the sun. Just being outside, with no sunglasses, Falza regular eyeglasses are fine. Looking in the general direction of the horizon is enough. Walk your dog, sip your coffee, or simply stand on a balcony or patio. If your schedule demands early commutes, even opening a window and leaning into natural light helps. Like many powerful interventions, the benefits compound. After just a few days, people often report falling asleep more easily and waking up more refreshed. After 2 to 3 weeks, their energy becomes more consistent throughout the day, with fewer crashes in the afternoon. Emotional resilience increases. And over the long term, consistent circadian entrainment through morning light exposure is associated with lower risk of metabolic disorders, improved cognitive performance, and greater longevity. This is one of those keystone habits, small in effort but massive in return. The act of seeing sunlight in the morning is not just a wellness trend, it is deeply rooted in evolutionary biology. Your brain and body expect this signal. When you give it what it needs, it rewards you with better health, better focus, and better sleep. Deliberate cold exposure is one of the most accessible and powerful tools available for shifting your mental and physical state in a controlled and beneficial way. While it may seem counterintuitive to voluntarily expose yourself to discomfort, short bouts of cold can stimulate your nervous system, elevate your mood, increase your metabolism, and build resilience, not just physiologically, but psychologically as well. When your body is exposed to cold, whether through a cold shower, ice bath, or even a brisk walk in cool weather with minimal layers, it triggers a wave of biological responses. One of the first things that happens is a sharp increase in norepinephrine, a neurochemical that plays a critical role in alertness, attention, mood, and the fight or flight response. In some studies, cold exposure has been shown to increase circulating norepinephrine by 200 to 300%. This isn't a subtle shift, it's a significant boost in brain chemistry that translates to heightened mental clarity, improved focus, and a reduction in symptoms of depression and anxiety. The cold also engages your sympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for activating energy and readiness. Initially, this results in a burst of adrenaline, increased heart rate, and quickened breathing. But here's where the key benefit lies. If you can control your breath and stay calm in that stressful environment, you're training your nervous system to regulate itself. You're building what's known as top-down control, your prefrontal cortex learning to override primitive stress responses coming from deeper brain regions. That kind of control doesn't just help you in the ice bath. It helps you in traffic, during arguments, in job interviews, and anytime life throws adversity your way. Cold exposure also has significant effects on metabolism. When you're cold, your body activates brown adipose tissue, sometimes called brown fat, which is metabolically active and burns calories to generate heat. This process not only helps regulate body temperature, but also supports healthy blood sugar regulation and weight management. Regular exposure to cold can gradually increase your body's thermogenic capacity, making you more efficient at burning fat and maintaining stable energy levels throughout the day. Another benefit is reduced inflammation. Many people turn to ice or cold packs to reduce swelling and injuries. But whole body cold exposure reduces systemic inflammation by modulating the immune system, including lowering cytokines like TNF-alpha and IL-6, which are associated with chronic inflammation and numerous diseases. In this way, cold exposure functions as a hormetic stressor, meaning a small dose of stress that makes your system stronger and more adaptive over time. From a psychological perspective, cold exposure is also about discipline and mindset. You're putting yourself into discomfort on purpose, and each time you do it, you're sending a signal to your brain, I can handle this. That translates to a broader sense of control and confidence in other areas of life. It reinforces the identity of someone who can face challenges rather than avoid them. That kind of neuro-associative conditioning builds grit, and grit is one of the most consistent predictors of success across any domain. The key to cold exposure is consistency and safety. You don't need to plunge into freezing water for long durations. Even a 1 to 3 minute cold shower at the end of your regular routine can produce significant benefits. Start with water that's cool but tolerable, and gradually decrease the temperature over time. The most important part is not how cold it is, but your ability to stay calm. Maintain nasal breathing and relaxed awareness, even as your body sends panic signals. That is where the transformation happens. And like most powerful practices, the effects are cumulative. After a week, you'll feel more energized and mentally sharp. After 3 weeks, your baseline stress threshold will rise. You'll simply be less reactive to daily frustrations. You'll feel more in control of your physiology and emotions. This habit, simple and uncomfortable as it may be, has the power to change the way you respond to life. And that shift from reaction to regulation is what lasting transformation is built on. One of the most transformative habits you can build in your life is setting aside a dedicated block of time each day for focused, uninterrupted work. This is not just about productivity. It's about training your brain to enter and sustain deep cognitive states that are essential for learning, creativity, problem solving, and achieving long-term goals. When you engage in daily focused work blocks, ideally lasting between 90 and 120 minutes, you are leveraging your brain's natural rhythms and neurochemistry to operate at a high level of efficiency and performance. The human brain functions in cycles known as ultradian rhythms, which typically last about 90 minutes. During this time, your brain moves through a peak in alertness, focus, and cognitive ability, followed by a natural dip that signals the need for rest or recovery. When you align your work habits with this rhythm, rather than forcing yourself through back-to-back tasks all day, you're working with your biology, not against it. The result is better concentration, more creative problem solving, and less mental fatigue. During a focused work session, your brain ramps up production of key neuromodulators, particularly dopamine, acetylcholine, and norepinephrine. These chemicals are critical for sustained attention and neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and grow in response to experience. Dopamine provides the sense of motivation and reward, acetylcholine enhances focus on specific tasks, and norepinephrine sharpens alertness and energy. Together, they create an internal state that supports deep learning and high-level output. But here's the catch: these chemicals are not infinitely available. They require recovery. That's why it's important to treat focus like a sprint, not a marathon. Intentionally setting a 90-minute block, ideally in the first half of the day when cognitive resources are highest, allows you to enter what psychologists call flow state. This is the zone where time seems to disappear, distractions fade away, and you're fully immersed in the task at hand. Whether you're writing, solving complex problems, designing, or coding, the quality and impact of what you produce in that state far exceeds what you can achieve in scattered attention. The modern world is not set up to support this kind of deep work. We are bombarded with notifications, messages, multitasking demands, and dopamine-draining distractions. The ability to sustain attention is becoming rare, but also increasingly valuable. Creating a daily focused work block is not just a productivity strategy, it's a competitive advantage. It's also a form of mental training. Every time you resist the urge to check your phone or switch tasks, you're strengthening the circuits in your prefrontal cortex responsible for self-control and long-term planning. Environment plays a huge role here. To make the most of your focused work session, choose a location where you won't be interrupted. Turn off notifications. Use noise, canceling headphones or ambient sounds if needed. Keep only the tools and materials you need for the task in front of you. The goal is to reduce cognitive load so your brain can direct its full resources to a single objective. It's also important to understand that the first 10 to 15 minutes may feel uncomfortable. Your brain may resist, distracted by minor thoughts or discomfort. But if you stay with it, those neurochemical systems begin to activate and your ability to focus strengthens. Over time, this transition becomes easier and you can drop into a productive state more quickly. After the session, it's important to take a real break. This allows your brain to recover and consolidate what you've learned or created. You can use a short walk, some light movement, or even a brief NSDR protocol to reset your mental state. When practiced consistently for 21 days, daily focused work blocks rewire your cognitive habits. You start to crave the clarity and satisfaction that comes from deep engagement. You become less tolerant of distraction. And your ability to produce meaningful work increases, not just in quantity, but in quality. This is how high performers operate, not by doing more, but by doing less, more intentionally. You're not just getting things done. You're training your mind to focus, and that focus becomes your superpower. In our constantly connected and overstimulated world, the nervous system is under near continuous load. From digital noise to social demands and work-related stress, your brain rarely gets the opportunity to downshift into a state of true rest. This is where the practice of non-sleep deep rest, or NSDR, becomes essential, not as an indulgence, but as a deliberate and powerful tool to recharge your cognitive and emotional systems. NSDR refers to techniques such as yoga nidra body scans and certain forms of guided breathwork or meditation that bring the brain into a state similar to sleep without actually being asleep. And the benefits go far beyond relaxation. During NSDR, your brain enters a slow, wave, low-frequency state that closely resembles the early stages of sleep. This shift decreases sympathetic nervous system activity, the fight or flight mode, and enhances parasympathetic activation, which governs rest, digestion, and recovery. As a result, heart rate slows, respiration deepens, and muscle tension decreases. More importantly, stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline drop, giving your entire system a chance to reset. One of the most striking benefits of NSDR is how it affects learning and memory. After periods of focused work or intense mental effort, the brain accumulates a kind of cognitive fatigue. This is not just about feeling tired. It's a real physiological effect caused by the depletion of neuromodulators like dopamine and acetylcholine. NSDR provides a way to restore those systems without sleep. It enhances synaptic plasticity, the mechanism by which your brain strengthens or weakens connections between neurons based on experience. This means that practicing NSDR after a learning session can improve retention and integration of new information. It's a kind of cognitive save button. Additionally, NSDR boosts dopamine receptor sensitivity. Dopamine is the molecule of motivation, drive, and anticipation of reward. Overexposure to shallow rewards, like scrolling on social media or jumping from one task to another, can blunt your dopamine system over time. By entering a state of deep rest, you allow the receptors to reset, making your brain more responsive to meaningful rewards and more motivated to pursue long-term goals. The practice itself is simple, though it requires consistency. Find a quiet space where you can lie down or sit comfortably. Use a guided NSDR audio if needed. Many exist specifically for this purpose. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and follow the verbal cues to scan your body, release tension, or visualize calming images. The aim is to remain in a state between wakefulness and sleep, aware, but deeply relaxed. Even 10 to 20 minutes per day can have a profound impact. Unlike a nap, you don't need to fall asleep to gain the benefits. NSDR also helps to rewire your relationship with stress. By repeatedly bringing the nervous system into a state of calm, you train your body to recognize safety. This is critical because chronic stress sensitizes your brain's threat detection circuits, particularly the amygdala, leading to exaggerated responses to minor triggers. Over time, NSDR reduces this sensitivity, improving your emotional regulation and capacity to stay grounded under pressure. Many people report enhanced creativity and problem-solving abilities after practicing NSDR. That's because in this state, the brain is able to access more diffuse modes of thinking. The default mode network associated with introspection, insight, and big picture thinking becomes more active when the brain is not locked into high, focused states. This explains why breakthroughs often happen in moments of rest, not when you're forcing the answer. After just a week of consistent practice, many notice deeper sleep, lower anxiety, and greater clarity. After 3 weeks, NSDR becomes a kind of mental sanctuary, a tool you can return to anytime you need to reset, refocus, or recharge. It's portable, non-invasive, and entirely within your control. In a culture that values doing, NSDR reminds you of the value of being, and it gives your mind and body the space they need to grow stronger from the inside out. One of the most underestimated yet highly effective habits for improving physical health, emotional resilience, and mental performance is daily movement. Not intense exercise necessarily, but consistent, low to moderate physical activity that engages the body without overwhelming it. This kind of movement, walking, mobility work, light cardio, or bodyweight exercises, acts as a stabilizing force for the entire nervous system, optimizing energy regulation, reducing inflammation, and supporting a host of cognitive functions. It's not just about burning calories, it's about building a brain and body that are adaptable, stable, and high-performing. When you move your body, especially in a rhythmical, low-stress manner, you activate what's called the locomotor rhythm. This is a fundamental neural pattern that links your body's movement with brain activity. It increases blood flow to critical brain areas such as the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus, regions responsible for executive function, decision-making, and memory. At the same time, it downregulates overactivity in the amygdala, the brain's fear and stress center. The result is not just a physical, good sensation, but a measurable shift in your mood, focus, and sense of emotional control. Regular movement also increases the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factors, BDNF, often referred to as Miracle for the brain. BDNF supports neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to adapt, learn, and recover from stress. The act of moving, particularly in aerobic zones, stimulates BDNF release in the hippocampus, which improves learning, memory consolidation, and even emotional regulation. People who engage in daily movement report not just higher energy, but greater mental flexibility and creativity. There's also a powerful connection between movement and emotional processing. Emotions are not purely cognitive, they are somatic experiences. They live in the body. When you move regularly, you allow stored tension and stress hormones like cortisol to be metabolized more efficiently. Movement acts as a pressure release valve for your nervous system. This is one reason why going for a walk after an argument or a stressful work session often leads to new insights or a shift in perspective. The body processes what the mind cannot articulate. Beyond that, daily movement plays a vital role in metabolic health. It enhances insulin sensitivity, helps regulate blood sugar, and reduces low-grade inflammation, factors linked to both cognitive decline and chronic disease. You don't need a gym membership or a perfect workout plan. Even 20 to 30 minutes of walking per day, ideally outdoors, can produce significant physiological changes. If you can incorporate movement after meals, such as a 10-minute walk, it further improves glucose metabolism and supports a steady energy curve throughout the day. Movement is also one of the most reliable ways to regulate the autonomic nervous system. Many people are living in a chronic sympathetic state, high alert, high stress. Gentle physical activity activates the parasympathetic branch, creating a downshift in physiological arousal. This is why movement before bed can actually improve sleep. When done gently, it prepares the body to transition into rest, especially when paired with calming breathwork or light stretching. There is also a strong behavioral component. Daily movement builds identity. When you move with intention, even just a short walk or a few rounds of bodyweight exercises, you are reinforcing the belief that you are someone who takes care of their body. This seemingly small choice creates a cascade of positive decisions across the day, from how you eat to how you sleep to how you relate to others. Over time, these micro decisions compound and become a lifestyle. Within 3 weeks of consistent practice, your brain begins to crave movement. Not as a chore, but as a source of balance. It becomes a ritual of self-alignment, a reset button you can press anytime you need to shift your mental state, release tension, or re-engage with your goals. Movement becomes less about discipline and more about integration, a natural part of how you show up fully in your body and in your life. Sleep is not just rest, it is active recovery. It is the single most important factor in determining your ability to think clearly, regulate emotions, maintain energy, and adapt to stress. In fact, nearly every system in your body and brain is either enhanced or impaired depending on the quality and duration of your sleep. Building a consistent sleep-wake cycle isn't just about feeling more rested. It's about optimizing your entire physiology and aligning your biological systems to work with precision and efficiency. At the core of sleep regulation is your circadian rhythm, an internal 24-hour clock that governs not only when you sleep and wake, but also when your body produces hormones, digests food, repairs tissue, and performs cognitive tasks. This rhythm is anchored by cues from your environment, especially light. Morning sunlight, for instance, plays a powerful role in resetting your internal clock each day. When you expose your eyes to natural light shortly after waking, ideally within the first hour of being awake, you send a signal to a region of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which then triggers a cascade of hormonal events. Cortisol, often misunderstood as just a stress hormone, spikes naturally in the morning to help you feel alert and focused. Melatonin, your body's sleep-promoting hormone, is suppressed during this time and then begins to rise about 12 to 14 hours later, preparing you for sleep. This rhythm works best when it is consistent, going to bed and waking up at the same time each day. Even on weekends, reinforces the timing of these biological processes. When your sleep schedule shifts unpredictably, your internal systems fall out of sync. The result is poor sleep quality, reduced alertness, and increased vulnerability to mood swings and immune dysfunction. This is why the habit of a regular sleep-wake schedule is so foundational. It gives your brain and body a stable framework from which all other behaviors can thrive. Sleep itself is divided into cycles of roughly 90 minutes, alternating between non-REM and REM sleep. Both phases serve different functions. Non-REM sleep, particularly deep sleep, is when the body repairs tissue, balances hormones, and clears out metabolic waste from the brain. REM sleep, which becomes more prominent in the latter half of the night, is critical for emotional processing, memory consolidation, and creativity. Missing out on either phase due to poor schedule, late-night screen exposure, caffeine, or alcohol impairs your brain's ability to regulate mood, recall information, and manage stress. One of the most common disruptors of sleep is exposure to artificial light late in the evening. Blue light from screens suppresses melatonin production, delaying sleep onset and reducing the quality of deep sleep. That's why creating a wind-down ritual in the last hour before bed is so important. This could involve dimming lights, reducing screen use, reading, doing light stretching, or engaging in calming breathwork. These cues tell your brain that sleep is approaching, helping it to shift into a parasympathetic, rest-oriented state. Temperature also plays a significant role. Your body naturally drops in temperature as you prepare for sleep. Supporting this drop by keeping your room cool, taking a warm shower an hour before bed, or using light blankets can improve sleep onset and depth. The goal is to create an environment where your physiology is encouraged to move into a recovery state rather than remain in alertness. After 3 weeks of aligning your sleep-wake cycle, the benefits become undeniable. You'll experience improved cognitive function, better emotional resilience, more stable energy levels, and enhanced physical recovery. You'll also notice that your motivation and discipline in other areas, work, exercise, relationships, become easier to sustain. This is because sleep is the foundation of self-regulation. When your sleep is dialed in, everything else becomes more manageable. You stop operating in survival mode and begin to thrive. Consistent, high-quality sleep isn't a luxury, it's a high-performance tool. And the discipline of maintaining a steady schedule is not about restriction, but about creating the internal stability needed to show up fully each day. You're not just sleeping better, you're building a system that supports your highest potential.